Terra's story, chapter 26. The day flew by as they dug for details that somehow seemed less important than before. By the end of the day check-in, they had nothing really significant to report. While under normal circumstances, they would have been incredibly frustrated, now they were ready to simply head home to try to rest. They didn't even linger over the catfish and hush puppies Boo served, although the stopover in her comforting atmosphere was essential to gearing down. Then, before heading out into the night, they returned to the police station, where each of them was handed a black backpack, inside of which was a white parachute nylon bag, heavy with the lumpy bundles of cash inside it. Their ease melted as they each checked their weapons and headed out into the eerie, empty streets. They agreed to stay together, and Terra's place bordered the park. So that's where they headed. Night had just fully settled its blanket of darkness over the city when Terra crawled into bed, and Joni and Brian stretched out on different parts of Terra's big sectional sofa. They set an alarm for midnight 30 on all three phones, just in case. Terra didn't think she'd be able to sleep, but when the chimes of her alarm's ringtone went off, she had to pull herself back from deep in the void to come to an ordinary reality. Ugh, she groaned, resistance making her limbs feel too heavy to lift. She threw the covers aside and pulled her t-shirt down over her pajama bottoms, then reached for the lamp switch and cursed under her breath when nothing happened. Terra fumbled around until she found the candle and flicked the lighter to ignite it. Finally, she could see. When she opened the door to the living room, both Brian and Joni seemed to be in a similar state. Joni was yawning as stumbled about the kitchen, headed toward the electric kettle. "Don't bother, Joni. No power, remember?" Terra reminded her. She chuckled when she heard the same curses she'd uttered herself. "Come on, let's go outside." The air was fresher on the balcony, still cleaner than usual because of the lack of cars on the streets below. A few whiffs of nature carried on the light breeze that gusted by every once in a while. The smell of the reeds along the edge of the lake, the rich, moist mulch under the trees, even the scent of water when the wind pushed ripples across the lake. The bat population had long since finished dinner and returned to wherever their cave hid them away. "Quiet tonight, isn't it?" Joni reflected after a few minutes. The words were hardly out of her mouth when all three phones pinged with a message notification. They looked at each other first, then, following the protocol they had embraced earlier, carefully touched their heart to help bring it and their minds into coherence while they breathed slowly and carefully. Ah, yes, less anxiety, more objectivity. "Impressive, isn't it?" Terra reflected. "Just a minute of slow breathing after I touch my heart and I feel calmer and stronger. Okay, let's see what's up." She focused on the bright screen activated in front of her. 1:48 a.m.? Wonder why they picked such an odd time for the drops. What coordinates do you have? They compared notes. The time of the drop was the same for all three, just the coordinates where the remote-controlled helicopters would be differed. "Let's check where we're supposed to be in relation to each other," Brian murmured and began to tap into the search bar of his phone. "I'm over... Wow, that's the hill where we collared the drone and the two operators." They really like that location. They must have other hole-ups in the area. "And I'm on the other side of the power plant, Brian." "It's about 3 miles from where you'll be on that overlook to where I'll be on the other side of the purification ponds." Terra gazed at the map, thinking hard. "Joni, where are they sending you?" Joni looked up, her eyes wide. "To the meadow of your favorite park, Terra. Less than a mile over there." She pointed in that direction. "I'd say you guys could shift and fly, but, well, what kind of distances can bats fly? Aren't they usually pretty close to their roosting place? I'd hate for you to get worn out just when you need to follow the copters." Good point, Joni," Terra commented, scratching her head. "Brian?" "I don't know the answer to that one either," he returned. "Well, I guess we're driving, eh, Brian? Joni? Shall we drop you near there? You know, the park is so close, I'm just going to walk. I'll be better able to sense what's going on around me that way, and if I need to, I can turn tabby. But if you have to do that, what about the ransom money?" Brian had immediately become protective. Good point. I guess I'll let you drop me closer. That means I'll get there early, but that's okay. I'll just hang back until the right time. Then, after the drop, I can shift and get the hell out of there. I bet I'll beat you back here, even though you'll be winging it. We are coming back here, right? I want to compare notes as soon as we get back, okay? Bernie'll let me in, won't he, Terra? He already thinks I'm your unofficial cat, or I can turn back into my human form. Will he let me in then? Joni's nerves showed in the unusual stream of her chatter. Brian walked over, put his arm around her, and pulled her in close. She laid her forehead against his chest and sighed, relaxing a bit. Okay, you guys, it's good that we're cruising by the drop points together before we separate. We can check for anything unusual. She paused as a thought struck her. Maybe we'd catch them setting up the copters and can see who they are. What do you think? Brian looked thoughtful. That would be pretty careless of them, but maybe... What if we park close by and shift before we go to the drop points? Terra wondered. We can leave the money nearby. That sounds like a better plan, Terra, Brian agreed. They won't be looking for anything but humans, and we can look quickly, then leave and come back with the ransom money. Joni, what do you think? I like this idea. It keeps us together longer and still gives us a chance to see what we're walking into. Joni definitely looked relieved. They took Mitzi, grateful that the Mitsubishi's engine ran smooth and quiet. Since the lake was the nearest drop location, they parked in the shadows closest to the path to the lake and snuck into the woods. Both Terra and Brian threw their consciousness into bat forms, while Joni shifted into her golden tabby cat. The coordinates led them to a small clearing dominated by an ancient oak with broad, sweeping limbs. The trunk of the tree alone was broad enough to hide a couple of large men. Joni scouted out the entire area, her golden eyes easily piercing the darkness, her acute sense of smell identifying some rats scurrying around the roots of nearby trees and some birds nesting in the limbs, but no humans. She scampered back to the car, where the two bats had returned to human form. Nothing yet. Too early, I guess, more than an hour. She smoothed her hair away from her face, still very cat-like. Yeah, early. Since we've got time, let's go look around the other two drops. Without traffic, we're only minutes away. I can drive Mitzi without headlights, too. Terra climbed back behind the wheel. They were at the overlook in no time, but this time didn't drive beyond where the concrete of the street turned into dirt and gravel. Once again, they shifted in the shadows near the car before approaching the drop point. And once again, nothing moved. There was no indication of life to be seen, just shadowy patches that stood out a few shades darker than the surroundings beneath the low gray clouds. They returned to the shadows of the Mitsubishi, shifted back and quietly climbed inside.